Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to year 2026. I'm Dr. Susan Protasio, your host, and this is This Conversation Matters podcast. So we are all looking forward to a new year full of hope and possibilities, but we all know that life comes to some challenges as well, right? So today we will talk about resilience because we wanted to know its importance and what does it take for us to face those challenges. And I'm so delighted to welcome back my guest today. She is one of my guests, my first guest when I launched this podcast 10 months ago. So she is a licensed clinical social worker, serves as a cultural community liaison, and a consultant for the Riverside University Health System. And she is also a certified community resiliency model teacher. So let's welcome Dr. Ernelyn Navarro. Welcome back.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Dr. Susan. Thank you for inviting me back.
Yes.
And so as you know, in my previous introduction about myself,
Yes.
that I identify as a Filipino American.
Yes.
And I migrated here at the age of 14 with my parents and my younger siblings. And so on a personal level, this topic of resilience is important for me. And then professionally, of course, as you mentioned, that I am a community resiliency model teacher. So it's one that I am passionate about teaching resiliency in our community as well as other parts of the world.
Awesome, awesome. So, I cannot believe it's like 2026, can you believe that? So now I'm thinking we are all hopeful for, the best things to come, but then we just probably need to be resilient. Now, when I thought of that, it makes me wonder, what is resiliency? What is it? So can you share your insight about resilience?
Yeah, I agree with you. 2025 was challenging. And so our hope for 2026 is that, there's opportunities for us to have a fresh start.
Yeah.
So, resiliency, really for me, resiliency is our ability to be the best version of ourselves and being able to get through whatever adversities we're experiencing or have experienced in the past. And that's kind of the way I look at resiliency. But originally, I used to think resiliency is just the ability to bounce back or manage changes or challenges and cope with all of those. But I have a broader perspective now since becoming a community resiliency model teacher.
Yes, yes. So I wonder now, who is a resilient person? Are there like characteristics that we could say, okay, this person is resilient? It makes me wonder,
resiliency is not something that we have or don't have, or it's not a trait or characteristic. We all have a resiliency zone.
Okay.
So if you can picture a resiliency zone within us, like as if it's these two imaginary line, right?
Okay.
So within this line, or our resiliency, or sometimes we call it OK zone, for the kids, it's easier to say it, that we can go through life's up and down inside our resiliency zone.
Within that
right?
zone.
So you can be angry, you could be irritated, you could be a little sad. But you're still able to be your best self and able to problem solve, able to deal with all of those challenges. But sometimes when there's high level of stress or traumatic or critical incident event, we get out of that resiliency zone. Okay, so some people get bumped high, like at this high level, where they're irritated, anxious, angry. And then some people get bumped low, below that resiliency zone. And so that's where you see people who are depressed or feel isolated. They numb, so meaning like they're just not feeling anything. They're tired all the time. And so being able to we all experience that, because there's going to be good days, bad days, but we're still able to manage. But people who get bumped out, it's a little bit more challenging. And the challenge is when we get stuck, like it goes on for a week, 2 weeks, a
Okay.
month, so then that becomes unhealthy for
Yeah.
us.
When you say bump out, so it's so like in this space,
The resiliency,
resilience. Like when you say bump out, does it mean like they're not able to cope with the stresses or the challenges?
Not
Is
that
that
they're
what it
not
means?
yes, in a way that it's a little bit more challenging for them, so they're not
So they have to
able
cope
to,
so much. They have to
yeah,
cope so
well, they're
much.
not being their best selves, right? So
Okay.
it's hard for them to
Cope.
problem solve.
Oh.
It's hard for them to
Okay.
kind of get through, the day like they normally
Yeah.
would.
Yeah.
And maybe all the other coping strategies that they're using is not something that they're able to tap into,
Okay.
right?
And then if they go lower that resiliency zone, that would be like
same thing,
same
right? So
thing.
high, getting outside your resiliency zone on the high part, it's just that whole anxiety,
Yeah.
the being
Yeah.
angry. Low is just the depression, sadness, being
Sadness.
tired all
Okay.
the time.
Yeah. So I wonder, are there like resiliency skills that we could, train or, cultivate within us?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
resiliency is
Yeah.
something that we're able to
Yeah.
build.
Yeah.
So, in the Trauma Resource Institute, when we teach Community Resiliency Model or CRIM, we like to think of these six wellness skills
Yeah.
as something that we have at the palm of our
Yeah.
hand, right?
Okay.
So at the center is what we call tracking. So
Okay.
that's being able to notice what's happening
Okay.
to our body, what's happening to our nervous system as it's reacting to that high level of stress or just stress in general. And then the other skills are resourcing. So resourcing are things that we already do. And then grounding, and then being able to also do what we call help now. So these are skills that, when you're really bumped out, then you need like something to quick that you're able to get back into your okay zone. And then gesturing are things that we do to help us calm
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
help us relax, and then shift and stay.
Yeah.
So shift and stay is really trying something, different, and different skills until you reach to that point
Yeah.
where you're back into your okay zone.
So when a person uses those, like any one of those wellness skills, do they know that they're using this particular skill, or just become like an automatic thingy that they respond to the challenge?
Well, some of these things we already do, right? So, for example, resourcing is any person, place, or thing, real or imagined, that gives us that calm, peace, joy, happiness. So, for example, for me, one of my resourcing is music. So, music is for a lot of people is a resource. But what we need to recognize is how that resource or that music
Is
is
helping.
helping,
Oh,
and
okay.
what's happening, the changes that's happening in our nervous system,
Yeah.
in our body.
Yeah.
Because part of the resiliency is being able to what we call embodied wellness. And so being able to make a connection with mind, body, spirit of how it's impacting us, so not just your feelings, not just your thinking, but it's really impacting us.
So there should be also like an awareness. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So if I encounter like a life challenges, then I should be aware. Okay, how did I respond, or how am I responding? And so I'll be able to cope if there is like more awareness, right?
Yeah, that's really the first part,
Yeah.
is being able to understand how our
the
body
body
is reacting to
reacting.
that. And we all
Yeah,
notice
we all
that,
know
because
that.
then that's our natural way of our stress hormone kicking in, right? Because we
Yeah.
have to respond
Yeah, yeah.
to that stressor or that potential threat, that
Right.
we're responding to. So now we can't live like that all the time.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
high level of stress is
Yeah.
not healthy.
Yeah.
So we need to practice these wellness skills to get back into our okay zone, to lower that
Yeah.
stress hormone,
lower the,
that in our life. So those, so being resilient is not, that like something that is my characteristic. It's a practice,
It's a
right?
practice, yeah.
So, and I think the other thing that also I want us to understand, and this
Yes.
is why when we say community resiliency, is that my ability to be resilient or stay in my resiliency zone doesn't solely rely on me, that I also need my community to be able to get through that, right? So that the struggle that we are experiencing is not just an individual struggle, but it's also a community. And the same way that we're looking at the strength. So it's not just my individual strength,
but the strength
that's going to help me through that, but it's also that collective strength that's going to help us through getting through all of that.
Because we tend to have, our community tend to support us too. They offer like services or like organization that give support to us, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, see, and I think that this is part I want to make sure that our audience, understand, one of the myths that we've had for a long time about resiliency is that, that as if I'm resilient and I'm a strong person, that I don't need help. That asking for help or getting help means it's a sign of weakness. And that mindset, that belief really comes from, as Filipinos, having been colonized, and so that our colonizer, right? So being able to have us believe now we don't need help, that if we're strong, then we shouldn't ask for help, and then because they didn't really want to help us, they profited from our suffering, and being able to then get through all of that. So that's one of the things that really is important. That resiliency skills is not about me as an individual being strong. It's about us collectively coming together to help each other and also getting through all of that, and then asking and giving help. You know,
but because that thing become like a part of our culture, like you don't want to ask for help sometimes because you're ashamed to say, hey, I'm suffering, or I need this help, or I'm at this level of these challenges. So that is so true. Our Filipino culture, we have that. And hopefully through our conversation, we're able to share with you how to really use resiliency. And then also those 6 wellness skills, can you mention? I think you could see it in iChill app.
Yeah, no, I wanted to share that, like, because we don't really have a lot of time, and this is a workshop that we offer, right? So the Trauma Resource Institute has free workshops that's online or in person, but you can access it on their website, Trauma Resource Institute. But we also have an app. It's called iChill app, so you can get it from your Apple or your Google.
And it's free, right?
It's free, and it's also in different languages. Unfortunately, right now, it's not in Tagalog yet, but it is in other languages. And so in that iChill app, you can learn a little bit more about resiliency skills, and then there's different ways that you can follow along different practices on the app. We'll be sharing that.
That's good. That's good to know about the iChill app. So now that we are talking about the resiliency skills, so is there like a particular experience that you encounter, that you overcome, and then how did you cope with the challenges?
Oh, there's so many, right? Because then
I know,
there's a lot to talk about, and so I've been thinking about what I could share here, but I think the part that resonated with me the most is that, and it's kind of one of those timely things, is that I went through the training to become a community resiliency model right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Wow.
And so, at the time I was still working in the hospital as a manager in a clinic, and I think it was like one of those divine interventions that I had those skills that I can help our staff in the hospital, in the clinic, and then use it for myself.
You were able to use it?
I mean, pandemic is a perfect example of there's no way individually that we could have bounced back from that if we didn't have each other, and collectively that we cooperated to be able to get through that period, right? Because so, even with the different shortages, vaccination, regardless of what you believe in, the shutdown really was stressful for
Yeah.
all of us, and that's what we call toxic level stress. It wasn't just your everyday stress,
Yeah.
I
That was
mean,
a
like
different
people
one.
were dying, and for us, we
Yeah.
still had to work in the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yeah,
So some
that's so
people
true.
got to
Yeah.
stay
Yeah.
home. And then, but for healthcare
We
professionals,
still
we
go.
had to go.
We have
And
to
so
go.
you risk your life every
Yeah.
day, that you might get this, virus, this disease.
Yeah.
And then,
So the
and
wellness
yeah,
skills
the
help
wellness
you.
skill came in handy
Yeah.
because what it did for me is then I started paying attention
Oh,
to,
that's good.
when my body is
Yes.
reacting
Yeah.
to that higher level stress. And I needed to be able to apply those skills and on a day-to-day
Oh, that's
basis. And so
nice.
it's one of those things where, like I said,
Yeah.
I think there was a opportunity for me
You were
to
able
not
to.
just teach
Yeah.
other people about it from a
Yeah.
cognitive level,
Yeah.
but just really also giving me the strength to be able to practice it.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I was thinking about that too because during the pandemic, I think I was able to cope with it well also because what I did was I kept in touch with people and then I wrote this and sent like the email blast to people in my community, like a blog sharing the medical aspect of what pandemic is. I even created something about caregiver burnout. So I've been discussing it to them. And so now going back to what we are discussing right now, the real definition of resilience, I realize now that I was able to cope because at that time I became like solution focused. Solution focused, right? So I think that made me cope well.
Yeah. And then all of those things that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
are what we would call resources,
Right.
and so
So
you
that's
having your
resourcing?
friends, that's resourcing, and then the whole point of like you needed those other people
Yeah.
to help you get through that. It
Yeah.
wasn't just you
me.
having the strength
Yeah.
and being a strong person, which you
Yeah.
are. You've been through a lot of different
Yeah.
adversities. But because you have those different resources, and then you had all those other people who supported
Yeah.
you, it helped you.
Yeah, so it's
So
like
now
a-
the
yeah.
second step, which is to learn how your body was reacting to
Reacting,
that.
yeah.
So being more intentional.
Yeah, so it's
And
more
so-
like collective,
Yeah.
collective well-being of people, right? So if there is one thing that you want to say to our audience or share, what would that be?
About resiliency?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would that be?
I think for me, being again, as Filipinos, we pride ourselves being resilient people, right?
Right.
And so it's admirable, all of that.
Yes.
At the same time, it's also being able to recognize and not be in
Yeah.
the shame about that. If I need help or if I'm
Yeah.
struggling,
Yeah.
that's part of who I am.
Yeah.
I'm made out of both strength and struggle, and so, when we're nahihiya or like being
Yeah,
shamed
shame.
that, we are struggling or suffering and then we're hiding it or holding it in, then it's hard for us to be able to cope with that. So resiliency is being both,
Yeah.
recognizing that we're made out of both struggle
Yeah.
and strength,
Yeah.
but with if we're able to be the best version of ourselves and able to problem
Yeah.
solve or solution
Yeah.
focus, like you
Right,
said,
right.
and having that hope and optimism and having compassion and empathy for other people,
Yeah,
and
that's-
also self-compassion,
Yeah,
right?
the people undergoing all those struggles.
Yeah, and then also that self-care of recognizing what's happening to my body, because you know it, like our heart rate is
Yeah, it's-
changing.
you're reacting.
I mean, I
You're
get
reacting.
migraine headache, my shoulder aches.
Yeah.
Our body is already screaming and
Right,
saying,
right.
"Hey, do something,"
Yeah, yeah.
And so but we tend to ignore that.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing.
So we have to be really kind of focused. So since it's 2026, it's a year full of hope and of course possibilities, right? So if you're gonna choose like a word or something, like a word for 2026 that would guide you, what would that be?
Yeah, For
What would be your word?
My word, yeah, because I don't usually do New Year's resolution anymore. So I've always had what we, a word
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah.
So last year it was about cultivating, cultivating new connection, relationship,
Yeah.
cultivating different things. But this year, my word intention for the year is transform or transformation. So I like the image of, that caterpillar
Transforming.
transforming
Yeah.
into a butterfly, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about the natural process of how that caterpillar had to struggle to come out of the cocoon to
Yeah.
fly,
That's true. That's
that
true.
that is that image of that struggle and strength, right? Because the butterfly needed the strength to come
Yeah,
out and
yeah.
then the strength to fly its wing.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm at the stage of my life right now where I have to make some choices about where I want my life to be.
Right.
But I also hope as a country and
That,
as
yeah,
worldwide
yeah,
really
yeah.
that word transformation or transform is that we can transform through all these different adversities of being able to then have that focus on common good,
Okay.
that
Yeah.
that we can transform all of the hate,
Yeah.
transform all of the
That is so
like
true.
being on our own and to all
Not to
and
be so individualistic.
yeah,
Not to
yeah,
be so individual.
that
Yeah.
we really need each other,
yeah.
that common good, for all of us
Yeah.
to get through,
Yeah.
all of those different
Yeah.
adversities. And so that's my hope is
Yeah.
for us to transform communities in a way that it's benefiting everybody
Yeah.
for common good.
That's true. That's so
And what's
true.
your word?
Well, my word is, I think, okay, when we say word for 2026, it means like, what is that particular word that you want to focus and kind of guide your journey for
Guide you,
2026, right? So mine is, I would like to say consistency, because consistency is the word for the inner strength. And I think it is the quiet power behind all the long-term growth. And if I'm consistent, then I'll be able to achieve all that I have laid out for 2026. So I think my word is consistency.
Yeah, no, that makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
you know?
Because I associate consistency
Yeah.
with discipline.
Yeah.
And so then, you're able to then
Yeah,
get through and
yeah.
accomplish all of
So
that.
that would be my word. So I hope you would ask yourself, what is your word for 2026? So thank you so much, Dr. Ernelyn, for sharing your knowledge with us. This is a very informative conversation. And I would like to say that resilience is not just an individual strength. It is the strength that you shared with each other, that you learn from, experiencing those struggles. And resilience, you could cultivate it, although it doesn't happen, of course, overnight, right?
Right.
So take a moment today, try to nurture your resilience and see how it transforms your life. So before we end, I would like to share with you this quote from Dominic Browning, and it says, "The key to life is resilience. We will always be knocked down, but it is the getting up that counts." So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care and blessings.